So I have 7:10 on the clock, and everybody has joined a breakout room except for the conference coordinators. So I believe we're ready to go. My name's Rick Van Vranken. I'm the Atlantic County Extension Agent for Rutgers Cooperative Extension. I work primarily with vegetable growers and small farmers throughout the county and throughout South Jersey. A lot on specialty vegetables and a lot of work on marketing issues. As the coordinator for this session, we got a little bit of housekeeping to quickly take care of. The first issue is that recording has started, so we're good to go on that. That was I was told that was my initial assignment to take care of. Secondly, our agenda has changed a little. Dr. Ramu Govindasamy, who is our colleague from the Department of Ag Economics, and Robin will correct me on the official title, but he got called away, had a death in the family, had to return to India suddenly. And so between Robin and myself, we're going to try to cover most of what he was going to discuss. It was very last minute, so we are going to juggle it the best we can and hopefully make out all the points he was going to cover. That being said, that means we're down to two speakers, one myself and two Dr. Robin Brumfield, who you already met as the coordinator of the Annie's project, but she has been our farm management specialist for many, many years. And we work together, collaborate on a number of programs, but I just got involved with Annie's project a couple of years ago at the last minute also. We have one, there it is. I got to make sure to, my next challenge is figuring out how to share my screen and start my slideshow.
Rick, there was just a message to make sure we're recording, are we?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see if this goes. There we go. Okay. So again, my name's Rick Van Vranken. I'm the county ag agent here in Atlantic County. I'm down in the southern part of the state. And it's great to be part of this Annie's project. Doesn't seem like it could be 10 years, but it went pretty quickly. The talk that I tend to give for a lot of my marketing programs is based on the fact that a few years ago at the USDA, they started the Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food program, trying to get consumers to connect directly to the producers of their food. However, as I've twisted things around a little bit to look at it from the farmer perspective, my mantra has always been the customer is always right. So you better know your customers. And part of this was talking about how to know how to price for those customers. I saw a post just the other day that was shared by a colleague on LinkedIn that was talking about customers are now less worried about price and more concerned about quality. There's research in both directions about that, but considering the original post came from somebody trying to sell all artisanal specialty breads to restaurants, they were saying don't price down your product, price it up to cover the cost of our high quality product and give that impression to your customers. So it's important to know your customers, both from a marketing standpoint, but even as directly involved with pricing. Marketing 101. When I was originally asked to give this talk many years ago, I'm a produce or a vegetable production guy, but I've always leaned toward talking about marketing because it's a critical part of the procedure of what to produce, how to produce it, and such. But when they asked me about talking about marketing your produce, it dawned on me that we've got it backwards. What we really need to do is talk about producing for your market. And the more you understand your market, you know what, where, when, why, and how to produce it. It's not your grandfolks' farm anymore. You just can't go out there and plant it and hope that they are going to come in and buy it from you. You got to know who you're going to sell to and cater to them, just as our keynote speaker was alluding to. Number one rule in marketing, give your customers what they want. That once you know what they want, that'll help you grow the right crop, harvest it at the correct stage. Even packaging. We've gone from open packaging to packaging in individual containers to reduce cross-contamination, especially during the height of the COVID pandemic. But now we're have consumers that are concerned about now what do we do with all this packaging that's piling up and creating more fill in the landfills. As we talked about, it helps you set the right prices and it keeps your buyer happy. And most of all, it helps you avoid some costly mistakes. We'll give some examples of those. How do you know your market? Well, there's a couple of things. There are marketing tools that helps you analyze and find your customer. Once you've found them, then you want to target them by drawing them in. And there are different ways that you can get your customer to the door to buy your products. And then you want to retain your customer. There's a lot of work out there that says the majority of your product comes from your loyal customers, not so much from finding new customers. You want to find an occasional new customers because every once in a while you're going to lose an older customer, but you're better off working on retaining your present customer base. And then there's marketing techniques. That's the selling and communications that helps you reach out to those customers, tell your story, make sure they understand you, understand you, your business, and the products you have to offer them. One of the biggest issues that a lot of farmers have, and I just saw 2 or 3 recent publications about the perplexities of pricing. One is the biggest, it's the biggest obstacle in farmers understanding when they go into a grocery store that they know they've sold a box of peppers for maybe $10 to $12, and they work out the math of what it is, and their box of peppers is ending up over $50, and they get quite concerned. The raw product going into that farm to table, farm to consumer sale in that wholesale distribution route, the value of the product itself is very small portion of that. And that gets frustrating sometimes, and that's why people start talking about direct marketing as an alternative. But if you really think about it, all you're doing is changing the cost, transferring the cost of everything from the farm gate to the consumer to your own operation. And so you still have to be able to cover those costs of marketing, and whether that's putting up a roadside market, all the advertising, all the handling, the extra labor that goes into running a market, and whether that's from your on-farm market or taking it to the local farmers market, or doing some sort of online sales. All of those, as was alluded to before, there's only so much time to produce, and then to add all that marketing on top of that is extremely difficult and challenging. So part of the perplexities of pricing is you've got to establish what your objectives are. Are you trying to move a wholesale volume, or are you trying to move seconds and reduce your waste? Are you trying to gain new customers or retain those loyal customers? Do you project quality or do you project that you're a bargain source? Most of all, your objective should be to make a profit, because you're not a sustainable, viable operation if you're not profitable. The strategies for pricing, if you look into the literature about it, there's 2 or 3 different ways that you can set a price to make it worthwhile. But if you do a lot of calculating of your production costs and then add a certain percentage or dollar value markup, you can try to meet the competition. And when I talk to farm market operators about meeting the competition, I'm not talking about what their local farm markets are selling things for. I'm talking about what the local retail grocery store is selling for. Maybe you want to project that because you're closer to the production, you can be a little bit cheaper than the grocery store. But if you get too much less expensive, then there's the question of whether you're projecting that quality versus the bargain source. So you can meet the competition head on by watching the local grocery store ads and seeing what they are selling for. And of course, there are certain products where you can see what the market will bear. You just keep marking the price up for a while, and pretty soon you find out that the guy is, your customer is coming in and telling you the guy down the street's 20 cents cheaper than you. I'm going down there to get my product. So you can, so you know you need to back off a little bit on what the market will bear. Some of the methods that you can also add to that strategy are loss leaders, where you price your products a little bit below cost early in the season or on a sale, and trying to get people into the market to purchase not just the product that's on sale, but a lot of other products that you don't have on sale. Again, competitive pricing looks at what the rest of the local competition is selling. And discounting and sales, stuff that needs to be moved fast, moving those seconds, that's when you start thinking about having a sale or discounting them somehow. How do you go about knowing your cost of production? That's called enterprise budgeting. You've got to move volume, but you don't want to be you don't want to be greater than the cost of production. If it's a loss leader, you're less than the cost of production, but you average it out with the rest of the sales, either for the season or for that product or for the rest of the products in your market. And then if you're a price taker, here you're going to a wholesale market and you are taking whatever they will give you for a product. How low can you go before that is not worth even going to the market to make that sale? That's one of the major questions you have to ask. So if we're talking about moving your produce, your products from farm to market, there are several routes, and most people don't think about the differences here. But if you're a farmer, you can go direct to the consumer. Yes, you set your price, but then you've got to meet the competition. You've got to think about all the costs that are involved in running that farm, that retail market operation. On the other hand, you can turn and send much larger volumes through a number of different routes to get to the consumer, eventually getting to a retail store or a restaurant. But there you're often a price taker. You have to do some serious bargaining along the way to make sure that you're getting a price that's covering your costs and giving you enough to live on. The thing that most people, especially those starting out, don't realize, and especially when you look back at my title slide that says know your farmer, know your food, and the whole process of trying to get people to focus on direct marketing, is in total, for fresh fruits and vegetables, 99% of the fresh fruits and produce that goes to the consumer goes through that bottom right-hand corner through the wholesale delivery route. Although only about 1% nationally goes directly from a farm to a consumer. And so that may be an opportunity for some people to make some sales and to increase their margins, but it is a very small portion of the overall total of food product that is moved in this country, of fresh produce. So you can get innovative. You can do things like sell your sustainability. There's several groups out there that have talked about that have created value by being innovative in their waste reduction. You can get some clever renaming and packaging to increase your volume and your income. A company out of California sells odd bells. They're seconds that wouldn't otherwise get in the box for the number ones, but you put them in a package and call them odd bells, and you get a much better price than you get for sending those seconds to the processor. And then there's other ways to rename them. You see the wholesale box or at the farmer's market there, the red, yellow, and bell peppers. For a number of years, some clever retailers have been selling stoplight peppers, a package of a red, yellow, and green pepper in a sleeve, just like the odd bells. But again, you get offering the consumer a value-added product in a single little package. The other thing about selling sustainability is that you can tell your story about how you're reducing the trash stream, how you recycle and compost, or how you're telling your story about how you donate food and to feeding programs and to food banks and such. Other ways to add value and get a higher price for your product is to brand them, as our keynote speaker mentioned, but also to change the actual form, making cranberries into sauce or juice or fortified or for craisins. Grapes are always been sold as jelly, raisins, and wine. And apples get processed into a number of products. And we can do the same thing with a lot of other fruits and vegetables. If you want to explore that route, our Rutgers Food Innovation Center is a fully equipped research and development center that has a commercial kitchen that can be used to test a small product development. And then if it is successful, and they've had a number of successes, you can grow that into a full-size product and start mass marketing it, starting with their facility. It is a fee-based system, but it is an opportunity if you want to learn how to process your products into something different than just fresh. Back to knowing your market. Here's a little story I like to tell about peppers. You know that there are lots and lots of different peppers out there, and you know that there are a myriad of folks that like them hot, and some like them really hot. There's people that go around testing hot sauces and testing hot peppers. What used to be a hot pepper was the habanero that topped out at about 700 or 800 Scoville units versus a jalapeno at about 3,000 or a bell pepper at 0. Now they've got ghost peppers that top out over 1 million, and we've got Carolina Reapers that are pushing 2 million units. Well, there's a little caveat in there. Not everybody likes hot peppers, but some actually like the taste of a habanero type pepper, but they don't like the heat. So if you talk to somebody from Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, they will love a habanero flavor, but they don't like hot peppers. And so they look for an ají dulce, which is something very similar to a habanero, and it has that same smoky flavor, but without any heat whatsoever if you get it right. If you let it cross with some habaneros, it'll start picking up some heat if you save those seeds. So you got to be careful with that. The other side of that is knowing your customers. There are the Hispanic population, especially the Mexican population, associates heat in their jalapenos with a cracking on the surface. Those are basically little surface growth cracks that doesn't affect the flavor or the quality at all. Although the Mexican consumer associates more cracking with more heat. On the other hand, the American consumer has been trained that surface cracks are off quality and they should be avoided. So they tend to go for those without any cracks whatsoever. The curious part is that there are some varieties of jalapenos that you can grow that have very little heat and very little cracking. And there are others that have a lot of cracking. And it turns out that the heat and the cracking are not necessarily correlated. So there's a little misconception out there that cracks equal heat. And I just had that argument with somebody from Edible magazines who passed on that same little story about the cracks equal a heat. And that's how you can tell how hot they are. It really doesn't have anything to do with the cracks. It has more to do with the variety and the growing conditions of the season. So other ways to learn about your customers. We can go to the Department of Labor. We can go to the US Census. There are other states in the region that have statistics about their populations throughout the state. One of the things that I worked on a lot is with ethnocultural crops that are appropriate to a lot of the immigrant communities. And you can see by the maps, the blue map looking at the breakout of the Hispanic populations in the counties around New Jersey, and then the Asian populations. And each of those populations are also subdivided into many, many different groups. So you can narrow right down into the type of consumers that you might have in your community. And we're going to take a look at a couple of other tools that you might use to do that. One is one that we developed a couple of years ago. We had started out with that with a map similar to what you saw in the last slide, looking at different populations, but now we've moved that to an interactive map online. And this was supported by the Sustainable Ag and Research and Education Program out of the Northeast. And we now have a tool where you can go to ser.rutgers.edu/market research and go to the market research app by clicking on that link as it shows, and it brings up a map of New Jersey. And then you can start using the menus on the left column to start looking closely into the breaking down the different types of ethnic groups. So under Hispanic and pick Dominican, you can see the map starts showing different shades of where those populations are greatest. So if you happen to be located in one of those areas, or you sell at a farmer's market in one of those areas, you can then start adapting your production to meet the potential demand of those consumers. And the next step is a link to a program that I worked on with a collaborator at the University of Massachusetts. If you go into view potential crops, it takes you to the worldcrops.org website. And there you can select the continent, you can select the country, and then by country, it shows you the type of crops that they might be interested in consuming. And once you select a crop, it then takes you into a production site, whether it be a single page on World Crops that is devoted to that crop, or whether it sends you back. There are a number of ethnic groups that like different types of eggplants. It may send you back to our commercial production recommendations to get production information about those crops. But we relaunched that in early 2016. It's new and updated. Now it looks a lot better. It's got a lot more crops, and my partner at UMass retired last year. So it's now all mine, and I've got to get to work on getting some more updates. One of the stories I mentioned before about selling sustainability, and our keynote alluded to this, is telling your story about why and how you do things. This is a farm market in Lexington, Massachusetts, about 6 miles out of Boston. Yes, that Lexington where the Minuteman stands. And they've been a long time farmer in that area. They have a beautiful farm market there right on the edge of town. They have 30 acres of production right there, and another 300 acres about 30 miles up just over the border in New Hampshire. And one of the things that it caught my eye when I was visiting them was, ask me about our IPM program. They said that they get consumers all the time asking, do we spray pesticides? Do we use chemicals on our crops? And the owner says, come out and join me for a walk through the fields every Thursday afternoon. And he says he does it at least once or twice a month during the growing season. And he has half a dozen people joining him for a walk through the fields. And he discusses what they're seeing out in the field, both the crops and the pests that they find. And then he discusses why they use integrated pest management and the chemical pesticides that they have to use to control those, that they only use them when they see the pests there, that they're not over spraying, that the chemicals break down and are gone by the time they harvest, and the whole bit. He told me that in all the years he's been doing that, he's only had 1 or 2 people that have actually said they don't believe him, and they turned around and walked away and wouldn't shop at the farm. Everybody else enjoyed the learning opportunity. And that's the whole part about getting to know your farmer, that helps you get to know your customer a little bit better too. How are we doing on time, Robin? Because my clock is off screen.
You're way over, so we need to wrap
way
up.
over. Okay.
I've been messaging you, and I guess you didn't see them. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
7:38. You're supposed to be done at 7:30.
Okay. All righty. So real quickly, I just did want to mention, and these slides will be available. There are a number of resources that are available, both on Robin's website. We have several fact sheets I think she's going to mention, and a few other that are listed here. Those will be available through, if you look back at the slides once they're posted. So again, remember that #1 rule in marketing is that the customer is always right. That helps you grow the right crop, harvest it at the correct stage, package it appropriately, price it correctly, and avoid costly mistakes so that you fulfill that major goal of keeping the buyer happy. So quickly, any questions before we go on? Oh, 7:35, time to wrap up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If anybody has a quick question to pop into chat while Robin starts sharing her screen. Whoops. And then we're going to quick head forward with this. Don't see any questions. Okay. So Ramu is going to talk about marketing online. We've done a lot of work. He's done a lot of work in this. He does a lot of work in marketing and studying consumer perceptions on the produce that we grow, on the growing systems and such. He was asked to talk about marketing online. So we can go forward. So he just started out with a little overview of what marketing is. Marketing starts before you sow the seed. So that's back to knowing your customer, knowing what they want, so they understand what they buy. Did that note just say there's 30 minutes left in our whole session?
I didn't see it, but
okay, it went by fast. Okay, so
yeah, that's right. Yeah, 30 minutes and our whole session is left. Yep.
So the whole thing is as I said, you want to know your customer so that you can anticipate what they need and develop the product and services based on what they need, not on what you want to grow. Go ahead and we'll go down. And then getting into marketing, the wholesale marketing, as I pointed out in that one slide, the bulk of our foods go through wholesale channels, whether that be fresh produce or processed products and or meat and dairy and all the livestock products. The majority does go through wholesale. Direct marketing is anything that you do that sells directly to a retail consumer. Or the final consumer, which also includes selling directly to food service establishments. There's big differences between the two, and that is all involved in the volume, the packaging, and the pricing. Go ahead. One of the tools and what I wanted to start out with is Market Maker. This is it's a new online tool that's been around for a while. I saw a little blurb, maybe a paragraph about Market Maker as a mapping tool, maybe 15 or more years ago. And so I contacted the developers of it. It's a husband and wife team, which you can go to the next slide. Darlene and Richard Knipe out of University of Illinois. One was a livestock specialist. He was looking for ethnic processors for local farmers to sell their meat to. And Darlene was in food marketing, both at University of Illinois Extension. They developed this Market Maker system, which basically is a mapping tool that allows them to put in all the business data and originally it was on a state-by-state basis. You could find distributors, you could find wholesalers, you could find retailers, you could find processors, and then reach out directly, had all the contact information for them. The original Market Maker was based on a subscription on a state-by-state basis. It started in Illinois. I think they got up to about 20 states. I think they now have some national funding between some private foundations and the National Institute of Food and Ag, which Extension is a subset of under USDA. And they've now created this Market Maker United States. If you Google Market Maker, you need to Google Food Market Maker because the original Market Maker, yes, it was marketmaker.com or marketmaker.org, but that has changed. It is now foodmarketmaker.com. I believe with the new affiliation or the new national program, anyone can subscribe to it. The problem is it's not well known outside of those original 20 states. So even though I've been talking about it, now Brian and a couple of others have found Market Maker here in New Jersey. I just went through the list of members, and there is one small market in Jersey City, I believe, that's on the list if you search through there. If you search for New Jersey among the list of participants. So we have some work to do. It is a useful tool. This is one of the tools that's available for online sales, and it does have some sales options that you can make direct sales, or you can list your products. And from there, we can pass it on, Rob, and go through into yours. Your sections.
We'll get through the market because you had a lot about market makers. So as Rick said, even though there's most ag products go through a wholesale market, because of New Jersey being a high income, high concentration market, our comparative advantage is being next to the richest consumer market in the world. So we do a lot of direct marketing. We've kind of been the bellwether of that. So we have options in direct marketing of pick your own. I remember way back in graduate school picking my own strawberries to save money. Now it's more of an event for families to get out and have fun. So it's not just so much to save money. It's sort of event marketing. We also have community farm markets and community supported agriculture, which I think is waning a bit because people don't know what to do with all the produce that they have. So I know right before the pandemic, one of our biggest CSAs in the state was feeling some competition from those box services like the pre-made meal boxes. So if CSAs are going to stay around, they probably need to morph with the times. And then there's on-farm markets where people come right to your market, and the roadside stands. So branding is one retail strategy. You can come up with your own brand or sell under a co-op brand like Ocean Spray or something like that. For those of you who've had the Annie's Project class, I found that one of the most sort of inspiring, empowering part of the class was coming up with your mission. And then once you have the mission of the why of how you're in business and what you're offering to the consumer, then it makes it easier to do all these other things like brands to match that mission statement. So I think that is a really good starting point, which ties into what Bridget said about the why of why you're in business. And it ties in with the value proposition of what is the value that you offer to your customers. Why should they come to you versus the competitor, or even spend their money on your product versus a totally different product? They only have so much disposable income. And if they're looking at you as entertainment ag, then going to a movie or a baseball game may be also in the competition as well. So how do you attract the consumer and make them want to spend time at your place or buy your products or your services? So how do you tailor your product to meet them? As Rick says, the customer is always right. So, and customers are looking for labeled foods, healthy foods, sustainable foods. Again, those same things Bridget mentioned that are moving along. I tend to think that COVID kind of just speeded up where we were going anyway. We're doing more online sales. There was already a move toward that all along. People were looking at healthier. Now that they're trying to stay healthy and not get COVID, that's become even more important. So marketing strategies, you can look at market penetration to attract customers through price and quality or convenience. You can develop your market, tap new markets by value added, like selling apple pies at your farm stand in addition to just apples. Diversify. Ag economists are always telling us to diversify and not put all of our eggs in one basket. I think in New Jersey, at least the greenhouses that I've worked with primarily, we tend to be almost too diversified. We have too many products. So it's a balance between don't just grow one particular crop. So if there's an insect or a disease or a market failure of some type, then you're really in trouble. But you don't want to grow so many that you can't have some kind of efficiency. But we're also adding diversification. In my time in New Jersey is growing things all year. I've mostly focused on the greenhouse industry. That's what I know the most, but I find them extending into other things to keep going all year, not just in the spring and in the winter, but having things in the summer, selling pumpkins during the fall and Christmas trees. So spreading out that way in terms of different types of products, and then test market what you're going to sell. If you're starting with a new product, I would say start small, make sure it works before you get bigger, because getting bigger too quickly can just increase a problem if you haven't worked out all the kinks. One of the main things we saw happening in terms of marketing during COVID was an increase in online sales platform. There was a huge surge in that, and customers want healthy, locally grown food. And so farmers were looking for tools to manage these online platforms so that they could sell directly to the consumer. So this seems very complicated, but digital marketing involves all the things other marketing does: the branding, social media, deciding whether you're going to price competitively, e-marketing, having a good website. A lot of, everybody's Googling everything. So you need a basic website to start before you do the social media stuff, I think. You may want to have little videos, decide what products you have, and then make sure that you come up on the search engines when people are looking for your products. Social media is becoming more and more used with farming, and Facebook, now Meta, is the most popular social media site. It tends to be used by older adults, but it has 2.9 billion users. Then YouTube is the second biggest, and that's great for a lot of the direct marketing that we do. Instagram is also big, but about 21% of adults don't use any kind of social media. And TikTok, we're hearing more and more about that. That's up to 1 billion users now. Another one that he doesn't mention, but is Pinterest, that I think fits a lot of what we do in agriculture because it's so visual. Some farms are starting to use Twitter, so you can put out short messages, but it's more text and not so much pictures, but that's growing in popularity. And he does mention Pinterest here. Sorry, I forgot that it was here. So I think this is great for direct marketing kinds of things because it is so visual. And Bridget had mentioned that in her talk as well. These are the top 10 online platforms that are being used by farmers. And this is available, I think, in a fact sheet, and also you can get the PowerPoint afterwards. But here's a side-by-side comparison of the top 4. So you notice, for example, Local Food Marketplace has a high startup cost, but it doesn't charge anything per month. The others have no startup cost, but it's $70 per month. Or like Red Market has no startup cost, but it charges you a 7% transaction fee versus the others being a little bit less. So you have to compare and see what works for you, how you think this, which one is the best fit for your particular farm. Lost track of my time. How are we doing on time? Much. So you have to set up a user ID, register, then put your email address, come up with a password, put down basic information about what you're selling and what your hours of operation are. List the products, and you can see the customer choices here. And it has, you log on as either a buyer or a seller and look at plans and pricing. And again, you have the options. Even within each platform, there's different levels of membership. You can start out at the $70 one or move up to the $450 a month. So you need to choose what your needs are. Are you the producer or distributor? How many markets do you deliver? Do you have a brand name? Do you use traceability? What about product pricing? Do you have a minimum order? How do you manage inventory, and so forth? So looking at the top 10 fruits and vegetables sold in the US, bananas is the top fruit, potatoes is the top vegetable, and you can see some are increasing, some are decreasing. Blueberries are increasing, and that's a crop that we have here in New Jersey, so we can take advantage of that. Lemons and avocados are decreasing. Somebody said we do have producers in greenhouses for these, but in general, that's not a crop that we are big on in New Jersey. Okay, we have only 15 minutes remaining, she says. And lettuce and salad mixes are increasing, I think primarily hydroponic production. We do have some of that in New Jersey. So if you take the traditional Annie's class, we've gone through SWOT analysis, and we actually are trying to get a grant to offer an online Annie's project next year. So stay tuned for that. But you then look at your strengths and weaknesses, know your marketing mix. Does that fit your mission and vision? What is your branding strategy, and what value do you offer to your customers? I think online platforms are going to continue. People got used to that during COVID, and they're going to want to keep doing that. And so farmers set up online stores, and that can still continue. So buyers, your consumers love local food, but they like convenience. So an online platform will give them both. All this information was put together in extension in this fact sheet by our colleagues here at Rutgers, including Rick, who's one of them, getting started on online farm sales during times of social distancing. So you can Google that and find all this information that we talked about today. And I guess we don't really have time for questions, but I saw Ramu put this green can of organic Coke, which is, if people can market that, I guess they can market anything. Organic junk food is an interesting concept to try.
Oh, is that what he was trying to say with that?
I don't know, that's what I thought.
I was trying to make the connection there. Yes, you have about 10 or 11 minutes to run through yours.
If I could find it. So
my apologies for running over.
Trying to make mine. Is my screen still being shared?
Yes.
Oh, I'm not sure what. Is it? Let's see if it's getting the right.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So one of the things we hear a lot about on the news all the time is supply chain management. So this is the talk that I was originally going to give. So supply chain encompasses a network of organizations and activities that moves the product from the producer to the end consumer. So it's basically everything along that marketing chain. And a sudden interruption or crisis can negatively impact the flow of goods to consumers. As we know, my neighbors have been waiting for a truck forever because they need some kind of computer chip from China. So the truck is sitting in a lot somewhere waiting for those chips to come along. So as you know, COVID caused a lockdown, so that caused delays in transportation. It had a ripple effect in the supply chain. It caused more people to eat at home, work at home. They went to grocery stores, home improvement stores, direct market farms and garden centers more than usual. And it caused some logistical bottlenecks. And as Bridget said, we're thinking it's going to take up to 4 years to really work out all the kinks from this particular supply chain situation. But we also have disruptions in supply chains at other times. 75% of businesses have experienced some supply chain disruptions during the pandemic, and that includes agriculture in every sector here. So how do we manage the disruptions that are caused from slow shipping from overseas? Some of our young plants and seeds come from other countries, so there have been problems there with materials. There's also labor shortages and labor costs are up, getting your plant material and so forth. So you need to come up with a backup plan. I've been teaching personal finance this semester. Same thing I tell my students, you need an emergency plan. You need that for your business as well. So you need to outline different ways of getting your supplies if you aren't, if the normal chain isn't working. And you probably need an emergency budget because you may have to pay more for them. What are some other suppliers you can use if the traditional sources fail? And do you have other sources of money to go to if there are shortages and you have to buy things? So have some safety stock, especially non-perishable items. You know, a lot of the things we deal with in agriculture are perishable, so we can't do that. But conduct a supply chain vulnerability audit and identify some alternative supplies or processes. Consider how environmental factors, social factors, economics, transportation routes might disrupt your chain. Look for a decline, you know, if the product you're buying is declining in quality or the delivery's late, then you need to start planning ahead and maybe look for alternative sources there. Consider the supplier's financial health. You need to work with them because if they go out of business, you can go out of business. So we're kind of all in this together. We used to hear that a lot at the beginning of the pandemic. Look for alternative suppliers and consider maybe different geographic regions if you have to, and start building a relationship with them. If you have multiple products and one of them has a supply constraint problem, then offer temporary discounts on the product that you have an abundance of, and maybe limit the products that you don't have as much of. As you saw, this was happening, remember the toilet paper crisis. So, you know, you may have to limit some of your products if you have a supply chain constraint, just like stores let you only buy 1 pack of toilet paper. Consider inventory management software and online sales. So we saw it, the online sale surge increasing. We already covered this in the other talk. And then plan for recovery. Build your expertise in-house. Be a little bit flexible so that your workers can work part-time, and consider getting rid of unprofitable products. You know, you find a lot of suppliers just reduce the number of types of products. Sort of the opposite of the diversification. If you're over diversified, this is the time to cut back and get rid of things that aren't really working. So these are considered the 5 C's of managing a crisis. The crew. So keep your employees safe. People are the most important part of your business, I think, employees and customers. What about capacity? What are the constraints to your transportation? And can you get the product delivered a different way? We had people coming to the farm picking up their own stuff in touchless delivery during the COVID crisis. Collaboration, communicate with your partners in the supply chain so you can work together. Community, did you reach out to other businesses in your geographic area? And then the other type of people, the customer. Be transparent and honest about what's happening in your business so that the customer keeps coming back. So again, prioritize people, customers, suppliers, employees, and yourself. Make sure you take care of you. Put your oxygen mask on first. Secure supplies, communicate with your suppliers so you make sure you're getting supplies on time. Try to cut spending in other ways if you can. Update your strategies and your risk management plan, and embrace innovation. You're going to have to learn how to make lemonade out of lemon. That's what I found even way before COVID, is successful businesses adjust to the market and take use of that. So they cut us off. I wanted to look at a survey we did of people that took the last Annie's project, which we had just before COVID hit in December 2019, January 2020, and it was focused on urban farming. So we surveyed them 6 months out, which is right in the middle of the first year of COVID, to look at what they had done in their business. I'm going to zip forward. And I think the things that they did were all excellent ideas of how to manage your supply chain. So we asked them what steps have they taken since they took Annie's project, and they had implemented management strategies to overcome a reduction in the staff that they were facing. They reached out to friends and relatives and neighbors for marketing practices to expand their product line. They did contactless curbside pickup, and they managed a surge in their new clients using outdoor activities to sell their products socially distanced.
Got about 4 minutes left, Robin.
Okay, I think we can make it because I only got a couple more slides. So they purchased farm insurance to cover them during crisis. They focused on what they should produce. They increased their social media. They created mailing lists, because good old-fashioned email is still probably one of the best ways to reach your customers. They joined a network with a specific goal. They have developed their financial plan, which I know is a tough thing for a lot of farmers to want to do. And they started a website. And changes they plan to make are developing a business plan, prioritize the goals for their farm, reevaluate the inventory by using customer suggestions. That was one of the things Bridget kept saying over and over, ask your customers. Promote wholesome nutrition, another trend happening right now. Creating an LLC for their farm, and then publishing websites, creating summer camps, blogging, and social media. And finally, the last thing that they said, that lessons that they learned were the available resources that are online. We have a lot at Rutgers, as Rick said, access to online marketing strategies, the importance of social media, new ways to promote their business, new ways to collect market information, and how to prepare a farm business plan and a financial plan. So that was sponsored by a USDA grant. One key is always focus on all these risk management strategies for any kind of, plan ahead for if there is a crisis, all kinds of insurance, property, liability, health, and life. Try to contain your cost, make sure that you're the right size operation. Bigger isn't always better. Focus on marketing. Look at non-farm income to help if there's a downturn in the farm. We mentioned consider diversification or simplification. I would look at both directions. Or you grow too many things or not enough. Tax planning, and then reach out to neighbors in a way that helps them open up and be there for each other. So this is my email address, and also the farm management website, where there's lots of resources, previous Annie's projects, videos and PowerPoints from them are there. And also we plan to post these there as well. So it looks like they're asking us to leave the breakout room and go back to the main session. Hopefully you
close going to
marketing?
close automatically in about
Okay,
45
thank you.
seconds. So.
Okay, it'll take us there.
Thanks, everyone. As I mentioned in the chat, if you have questions, either reach out to Robin or myself directly or through your local county extension office. They can put you in touch with us if you didn't catch the email addresses. We'll see you in the main room in a couple of seconds here.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And hope you got something out of our trying to cover for Ramu. He had lots of good information there.
Thank you, everyone.